the average person, this is just some childish blocky bee game, but this statement could not be more far from the real truth, because you would be surprised to know that this little bee has the creator literally set for life. So in this video, I'm going to be explaining why, despite this silly smile, Onett is in reality an absolute genius. Now, to understand why, we have to look at the game, and as soon as you join, you immediately begin to see why. This game is different, this game is unique. Specifically, the fact that this game is not just another one of those copy-paste simulators. Now let me explain. Most modern-day simulators usually look a little something like this. You'll spawn in, and you have some sort of tool that you use to fill your backpack. After that, you sell it, and then you buy either a better backpack or a better tool, and then you just repeat this process for the rest of eternity. That's what makes Onett so special, is the fact that he created something unique and something completely out of the ordinary. For example, Onett actually just created different fields. Imagine how much more boring Bee Swarm would be if there was only one field. This is why Bee Swarm stands out, is because in other games, you're just mindlessly staying in one spot, and you can basically just set up an auto clicker to play the game for you. Whereas Onett made it so when you're playing Bee Swarm Simulator, you're constantly moving around and doing way more than just holding down left click. Not only that, but it's also just a lot more engaging. When you play these other simulators, it's either left click your mouse or you do these weird parkour things to get to other islands. Here, it's so much more engaging. We have quests, we have mobs, we have bees, bee quips, loot luck, movement speed, jump power, special event bosses, special event quests, and so much more. If Onett wanted to make a successful game, he had to make something that no one had ever seen before, and that is exactly what he's doing. Now, not only is the game interesting, but it does it in a very specific way, and that's the fact that progression in this game is very different than others. Once again, going back to other modern day simulators, you're usually getting some sort of new collector once every like 5 minutes. Doing this over and over again for about an hour gets extremely repetitive and extremely boring. Not to mention, there's nothing that makes all of the collectors unique. They're kind of just there. They're usually the same as the last tool, just a little bit better. Whereas Bee Swarm, things are extremely different. The collectors have different abilities, they collect in different ways, and you're not just getting them super fast. Sure, in the beginning, you'll speed through the collectors, but as you play a little bit more, your progression slows down, and you really get to enjoy your collectors, and really just enjoy the game itself. Not to mention that the other endgame collectors take more than just a bit of grinding. In modern day simulators, usually the really good collectors just cost the same kind of currency as the beginning ones did. Like, just imagine if the gummy baller only cost honey. It would be so much less engaging, and it'd literally just be a game where you just AFK in fields. Not to mention, everyone would just be getting it extremely quickly, as in other games, as I stated earlier, when you're getting these new collectors so dang fast, it can get overwhelming, and it really just loses meaning when you make some sort of achievement because you've done it 1,000 times before. Now, there are other games on Roblox that do have this down, but one thing that makes Bee Swarm stand out from the rest is its update frequency. Now, this one definitely requires explaining. Basically, what I mean by this is take Adopt Me, for example. This game was extremely popular back then, but recently it's been dying, and it's because of the updates. This game basically updates on like a weekly basis now, and the updates just feel dry. They're just meaningless. The creators are just constantly putting out new updates, and you don't exactly have time to adjust or really enjoy, because 7 days later there's something new to work for. And not only that, but it just makes the game more complicated, because if you're a newbie joining the game, suddenly there are all of these mechanics that you're being introduced to all at once, and it's just really confusing. Whereas in Bee Swarm Simulator, you get introduced to them extremely slowly, allowing you to learn and understand, which is exactly how Onett planned it, just so that way the average player doesn't feel stressed out or confused. You just gradually get to grow. Sure, Bee Swarm definitely doesn't update enough. If you didn't know, Bee Swarm gets about 1 update a year, but Onett actually puts a lot of thought into these updates, unlike some other games where the creator is just greedy and wants more money. But this is where I realized that Onett is way smarter than I previously thought, and that's because of AFK. Now, if you also haven't noticed, in other simulators, they're pretty much just AFK simulators, and you're just in the game clicking, or you can just leave an auto clicker, and so it's basically you're not really doing anything. Well, if you didn't already realize, Onett found out how to allow players to AFK in this game without allowing it to be too overpowered, but still extremely fun. Now let me explain. In another game, if you're just AFK, you're probably just getting a bunch of that game currency, but in Bee Swarm Simulator, there is so much more that Onett has to offer. Take right now, for example, if you start AFKing in Bee Swarm, well, first of all, you can start stacking picking up your playtime badge, which allows you to get more tickets. You can AFK in fields and collect more pollen. You can AFK and grab wealth clock for even more tickets. If you want, you can AFK at Stump Snail, do more damage, and defeat this awesome boss. And also during Beesmas only, you can AFK and get a bunch of gingerbread bears. Onett just adds so much variety and so many cool things you can do while AFK, so it's not just the same boring thing over and over and over again. And the most genius thing Onett added was last Beesmas when Onett added planters. They literally grow depending on how long you've been in the game, literally forcing players to spend hours upon hours in this game. If someone else had been creating this game, they would just add a cooldown, like say you could only use a planter once every 6 hours and it would get you free reward. Well, Onett was smart and instead decided that for those 6 hours you must be in the game, just further proving just how much he thought out the whole planter concept. Not to mention that AFK is pretty balanced and you can't get extremely overpowered and just beat the game by going AFK. Now, this entire video I've been talking about mechanics and stuff and just how players think, but we also have to call attention to the fact that this game is just straight up not too fancy, and I mean that in a great way. This game is just extremely user-friendly. It's extremely simple and nothing is exactly too complicated. In other games, they have extremely fancy graphics to the point where there's just so much that it becomes just too much. It's all just too distracting and it looks a little too over the top. Like take example for the Gummy Baller, given it's literally one of the best collectors in the entire game, yet it was literally made just using a few shapes and effects. A game doesn't have to have a crazy ton of effects for it to be good, it just has to be understandable and just look nice in general. The game is just super simplistic and calming, and the game is amazing that way. Onett seriously is just an absolute genius, and he puts so much thought into all of his updates and really just cares about his community in general. All of the game mechanics and every aspect of the game has been carefully planned out just to make a better user experience, and I honestly think that's pretty great. And with that said, thank you for watching.